What's going on, everybody? Welcome again for another BG Cast live podcast. Tonight, we are doing a special episode. I will be hosting the panel for this month, the FKN panel. And I'm actually really excited to have the honor of doing this. This is a cool little conversation we have each month discussing different topics. And, this month on the docket, we have solutions for a new earth. And we're going to be discussing kind of every aspect of that, because we have our own subjective solutions that we each, can do on our own. And then we have collective solutions that we can implement, to help push the collective along a little further. And we're going to discuss things like government and potentially some other things as well. I'm really excited to welcome the panel. So first off, we're going to start with Don Rogers and Canadian Spinja from After Dark and Surviving with Spinja. What's up, you guys?
Hey.
Hello.
Awesome. And then we have Jennifer Halcomb, the wife of the Commander-in-Chief of FKN, Chris Matthew. And she actually has her own energetic healing business as well. So Jennifer, let's get you on. Hi, how's it going?
Hi, Stephen. It's wonderful. How are you?
Doing good. Good to have you on my show finally. Yeah. And then we have, last but not least, Miss Karen Holton, the OG, who's been holding it down for a long time, grounding this higher frequency onto planet Earth. Miss Karen, how are we doing tonight? Thanks for being here.
Hi, everybody. Oh, I'm doing fine. Looking forward to the discussion.
Awesome, guys. Awesome. Well, this is really cool to have all of you here. So on the docket for this month, we have solutions for a new Earth. I think one of the biggest things that a lot of us have spoken about on these panels before is, moving into a solution-based mindset. And I think, this is something I'm starting to see a trend of. A lot of different people are kind of shifting their gears from being, just talking about the issues, lamenting about the issues, and, just basically yelling into an echo chamber about the issues, I guess you could say. And then, but now we're seeing this really huge pivotal shift in a lot of people's mentalities in this conscious community and all of its little subsections we have going on. So real quick, I think one of the first things I'd like to start off with is personal level. Now, what I mean by personal level is this, right now, at least in my eyes, and I'm sure all of you can agree with me, we're dealing with a very wacky, illusionary reality at hand. We're seeing things that we never thought we would see, and we're experiencing what I would call a whole new perspective to not just the world stage scenario at hand, but also our collective scenario as a whole. And now what I see a lot of is people getting really caught up and really attached in what's happening on TV, what's happening in the news, or what's happening online. So let's start off with Don and Spinja. What is something do you feel that we could do on a subjective level that we can do to help assist us with our strength, our consciousness, and our awareness, and our ability to have discernment during these times where we're being presented with a lot of this strangeness?
I think, well, for me, that's actually why I started my show, is ask questions. Keep asking questions. If it doesn't feel right, eventually you will find somebody who will have the discussion with you. And I mean, you have to be careful, of course, because people look at you like you've got like 3 heads, but you can, and I think intuition is very important too. I think, like, for me, I can feel when I can start asking questions and kind of test the water, and you just kind of get a feel for it. So yeah, don't discount your intuition, I think, is a big one.
I like that.
For me,
no, go ahead, Don.
It's going to go back to Karen's quantum health transformation. It changed my life because it changed my mind because it taught me to be able to shift my perception. I've always been a very straightforward, work hard, do this, this is the line. And after taking her course, I look at things. I actually just did it for spin tonight in the truck.
Oh, yeah, you
There
did.
was some disruption at work for her, and I reframed it in a matter of seconds, and it completely changed her outlook on it. And what that does on a personal level is it makes you feel better. It makes you vibrate higher. It makes you happier. As soon as you can take that perception from good to bad, you're going to change your own world.
I like that. I like that. I think you're absolutely right about that, Don. I think we're caught up in what I would call the collective has a perceived negative outlook on things right now, and it's ultimately that shift in perspective. Miss Jennifer, you're up next. What do you feel is something we can do on a personal level and a subjective level to help ground us, strengthen ourselves spiritually and consciously, and to keep our discernment at an all-time high during these very interesting times?
Well, the first thing I could probably say would be for people to ground more often. It allows the bullshit to fall away. Honestly, it allows you to examine how you feel in your body when presented with information, and I think that's a wonderful way to use discernment. Just in this wackadoodle world right now, it's crazy. You can't believe anything you hear, and you can't even believe half of what you see anymore. Like with AI and all of that stuff, we're being deceived all the time. And yeah, so for me, I think, and change of perspective, like Don and Karen say, when I start getting upset about something, I have to stop and ask myself, is this a response that's coming from love or fear? Because it's like your only two options, right? And so if it's not coming from love, then it's a reframing. It's a change of perspective that then allows me to raise my vibration in the situation. But for those folks out there, I would suggest a lot more grounding these days, because it really does help to bring it into your body, where you can then analyze, does this feel good or not? Is this true or not?
I like that. I like that. I think that's a great thing too. I think a lot of people discount the benefits of grounding. I think it's not just some woo-woo stuff. It really works, and I 100% agree. Karen, let's hear your input on this. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this all as well.
Well, I would like to reflect back on when I first left religion. Well, I should say when I finally left religion. I'm not trying to put anyone's religious beliefs down. I'm just saying how it went down for me. So I left a shunning religion, and I was heavily programmed. And while I was trying to work my way back to finding myself, I had to take a look at the different options that might be possible when I die. So because I didn't want to be afraid of death, I just want to take the bull by the horns and went, okay, I'm not in religion anymore. I'm responsible now for me. So I thought about what happens if I die and there's nothing after I die. I thought, well, I want to lead a life that was well lived. I want to lead the kind of life that when I am on my deathbed, I can have peace and know that I did my best. Then I thought about reincarnation. And I thought, I sure as hell don't want to come back and do this shit over again. So I want to get it right. I want to get it right this time. Then I thought about the whole heaven and hell scenario. And I thought, well, if I've done my best, I could stand with a clean conscience, and hopefully my heart will weigh lighter than a feather. And I have, again, nothing to worry about. Of course, if God says I'm unworthy, then I'm going to have a fuck you attitude and go into oblivion. That's fine with me. Because you can't do better than your best. You just can't.
That's right.
But the one thing that never occurred to me was anything that was of material substance. what occurred to me was all the things that I could gather and collect within that did not have anything to do with materialism. These were the things that I can take with me to the other side. And so that became my way of living and my way of perceiving and my way of doing. And I've never looked back since.
I
I
really
don't know if
enjoy
there's
it.
advice in there or not, but I'm just saying that's
No,
how it
no,
went down for me.
there most certainly was. There most certainly was. I mean, I really dig that perspective. You know, when you said you don't want to who here has seen that meme where it's that book, How to Not Reincarnate on Earth Again? OMFG, I effing can't. Please no. Now, you know, I think a lot of us, you know, it is. It's a very intense time right now, and you know, it's very emotionally intense, very energetically intense. You know, collectively intense as well. You know, a lot of us experience this on our own internal paths, but I think you guys have wonderful, wonderful advice and wonderful stories when it comes to this. You know, I think, you know, highlighting on what Don and Spinja were talking about, it's all about perspective. You know, I posted something on X this morning that said, "See the good in everything." And I know that's a hard thing for some people to do, but it's actually not quite complicated. You gotta understand that right now what we have is this blanket over us. That's this perceived negative world. Everything is completely negative. Everything. And while yes, we're dealing with some very interesting things, there's beautiful underlying things that are occurring outside of that also, you know, and I don't think that should be discounted. And what Jen said too with grounding, I think that's awesome. I think a lot of us should be practicing that every day. And you know, it does, it helps discharge us, it helps neutralize our energy a little bit too, especially, you know, for somebody like me who's an electrician who works with electricity. Grounding is a great thing for somebody like me also.
Yeah.
And Karen, living your life in a way that is of joy, abundance, okay, high frequency and conscious living, most certainly. Also, do no harm, take no shit. Just kind of what you were saying is what saying as well, where you need to give the divine the finger and then go into the void. Yeah, you know, and one of the biggest things I'll add to that before we hop on to the next thing is this, guys. Right now, the biggest thing we can do is go with, and inside of us, you know, what we have is a different kind of sight. And one of the biggest things I would try to recommend that we do during these very interesting times is to try to move ourselves into what I call a neutral mind. Okay, and what a neutral mind is, it's actually one of our 10 bodies, or 10 energetic bodies that we have, and it allows us to view things with no attachment. You know, I think a lot of fear is something that's perpetuated, and one thing that I wholeheartedly believe, and I've experienced this myself as well, and this maybe a lot of you can take with you as far as listeners and watchers, is this: if you are doing right, and I mean truly right, and you have to be honest with yourself on if you're doing truly right by yourself, your family, any of your loved ones, and other human beings. And if you are doing that, you have absolutely nothing to fear. I know that's a big thing for a lot of people to swallow, because a lot of people still kind of in a lot of ways find comfort in their fear. But I promise you that. All right. So next topic. Okay. One thing I think that we see a lot of is a lot of people in our community, in some ways, still kind of feeding into the societal Maya system. And what I mean by that is, you know, here's a great example. A lot of people have said throughout time that our dollar is our actual vote. You know what I mean? Like our dollars actually are votes and make things happen. But I still seem to see a lot of people still kind of giving their dollars to this system. You know, obviously, in some ways, we still have to utilize it for an extent for now. But what are some ways that you feel that we can collectively start to detach ourselves from this old earth paradigm and start to move ourselves collectively into what I would call the new earth paradigm. And since we started with Don and Spindle last time, we're going to start with Jen below this time.
Oh, wow, that's a very interesting question, Stephen. Um, I think it starts with raising your vibration, doing things that make you happy, uh, and taking the bad as a learning situation as opposed to an obstacle that I can't overcome, kind of thing. Um, yeah, moving into the new paradigm, I honestly don't know. I don't know what's going to replace what we have.
Mhm.
Yeah, I do think, and you're right. For the longest time, the dollar was our vote. That's how, we controlled the corporations as opposed to them controlling us. But now they don't really care if they have our money. They're just going to do what they're going to do. And I think becoming more self-sufficient and self-secure is the way to go about that. So securing things like, okay, water. How do we secure water? How do we secure our food supply? You start a garden. You get a distiller. And these little things help us move into a more secure frame of mind. We find our security inwardly as opposed to, the government save me kind of thing. Because, they created that problem.
100%. Yes.
Right. And so, yeah, I think that is a good place to start. And a lot of us started that way over COVID. We started seeing, oh my God, the world is going crazy. We can't rely on anyone or anything to save us. So how do we do that for ourselves? And the more security you find within yourself, the less you reach for it in others and give your power away that way.
That was a great answer. Yeah. That was a great answer. Alrighty. No, I want to say, Jen, yeah, that's perfect. I think that's a great thing to do. I think when we start to find that confidence within ourselves and we start to find that strength and understanding that we can be we actually have a comment. I have Sneath up here. Thanks for joining, Sneath and Alex, if you two are watching. Self-sufficiency is absolutely necessary. Oh yes, 100%. I agree with you there, Mrs. Sneath. It is, and I think Jen laid out a great point with that, because when we're self-reliant and we have these practical skills to take care of ourselves, we don't rely on the government. We're not looking for somebody to come save us. One of the biggest things I'm huge on too, as I'm sure you guys are as well, is being the hero of your own narrative. And that is a really good way to start. Alrighty, Karen, let's hear what you have to say about this. I know it's an interesting question, which is why we're bringing it to the table, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on what we can do in a collective sense to start breaking away and no longer giving energy to the current system at hand.
Well, for me, rather than say voting with my dollar, I'm going to say voting with my attention. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. I've got a couple of granddaughters, and one of them will do anything to get your attention and hold it, good, bad, or ugly. As long as she's got our attention, she's being fed and she's loving it. And I think the same is true for the ruling class. And I think that by giving them my rapt attention, I'm feeding energy into that system. Whereas if I ignore them completely, now I know people are going to say, oh my God, if you do that, they're going to run amok. Well, they're running amok anyway, guys. I hate to break it to you. The amok running is abundant. And so I refuse to give them my power, my attention. And so what I do is I spend my time and my energy and my attention in my own little creative universe, making my life truly good, having good health so I don't have to rely on the evil pharmaceutical industry or the disease management system, being a responsible citizen so that I don't even have to pay attention to laws and rules because I wouldn't break them in the first place. Things like that. And I think that they can only exist as long as we're feeding them our attention and validating them and giving them our power. And so I refuse. For me, they're just like fleas on a dog's dick. They matter not to me. Sorry about that
No,
rude
great.
analogy. But I'm just saying, I mean, I do care if the dog's dick has fleas, but I don't care about the ruling class. I will not call them elites. They are the parasite class, and they will
Yes.
not get my attention, and they will not get my energy. And that's just how I'm doing it. Not saying you should or shouldn't. I'm just saying this is how it is for me.
I truly, that was awesome, Karen. that was awesome. And that's a great way. No, I'm with you 100%. And yes, what we put our focus into, what we intake as far as content, media, anything else, whatever's on the internet, whatever distraction psyop is up next on the docket. We're kind of due for one of those here soon. I guarantee you.
Right.
But no, I think that's great, Karen. Is to no longer put our energy, our focus, and intention into it. And I think one thing I talk about is we as a collective, we've been conditioned to think that everything is hyper complex. And that from our health to society to every aspect of this existence is hyper complex. So I feel that this collective has been conditioned to think that these solutions are going to be hyper complex too, and that's the farthest thing from the truth. So I really enjoyed that, Karen. Thank you. Alrighty, Don and Spinja, let's hear what you guys think we should be doing collectively to help detach, break away, and no longer give energy to the societal Maya system.
Well, for me, I know you guys all know, but I literally just went back into the societal system after a almost 11-month hiatus because I had some shit to work out. And I went back with, thank you to Karen in that download, I went back with an understanding of the Matrix that I never had before. I know what it is. I know that it's a game. I know that I have to play it to do certain things in this existence right now. So I went back into it with you know what, I want to do this because it's fun. I actually enjoy my job. I have one of the most horrendous jobs that most people would want. I love my job. I drive a septic truck, but it allows me the opportunity to drive all over Alberta, talk to all different types of people. Since I've gone back, I've been back like 4 days now, I have not ran into one negative person on my run. And I go to some of the grossest, nastiest parts of our province. That I go like straight downtown Calgary, and these people are the people you see in movies. It's like, what the hell is that? They're waving at me, they're smiling, they're greeting me. How are you doing? And it's like, they're drawn to me because I'm just like, screw it, I'm happy to be here because I have to be here, but I want to do this because I'm doing it because it's going to help me. And I went back into it with this loving attitude that I never had for society before. And it's changing things around. So I think if the individuals in the collective each went out and just, you know what, screw it, I want to be here. I realize I chose to participate in this now. And I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing, even if it is literally a shit job. I'm happy.
I like that, Don. Well, what about you, Spinja?
Well, my notebook's been really busy because you've all brought up a lot of good points, and I'm almost not quite sure where to start. I think I'll go back to what Karen was saying in regards to attention and not feeding the narrative that they're doing. I feel like that is very important, because they need us to bring it to fruition for them. They can't do it without us. And they keep pounding and trying to break us and all of this stuff. And like I've found some balance. And I think we're also proof that you don't have to have your head stuck in front of a screen or listening to mainstream media in order to survive. Now, I will admit it. I've said this a few times. I listen to Lindsay Sharman's Winning Report every week, so that's sort of how I keep my balance. And one of the things that she does is she points out how we're winning, and the things that are going on right now, like there's so many distractions and so much, and so we also don't see the good stuff a lot of the times. And even if it's just tiny little victories, I think we need to celebrate more of those too. Like, just as an example, and I can't remember the details, so please don't quote me on this, and do your own research. It's easy enough to find, but I do remember Lindsay mentioning something about Apple and their VR glasses or something. They had priced them so high and nobody wanted them. They weren't selling them. They actually had to go back to the drawing board. And I'm not quite sure where that led to, but the fact that they had to go back to the drawing board, yeah, that's a pretty good thing. And I believe the same thing is also happening with electric vehicles as well. It's not going the way that they wanted it to. And they're having to go back to the drawing board. Like, even this whole, like pushing with the climate hoax and all that stuff. It's not working. And so I think that's the part where, like, if we can pull out those tiny little things and and realize that, and like know that we're winning. But the other thing also too I wanted to say was the little steps. Like, Stephen, you were talking about voting with your dollar. I think we're still in a position where we can do that, because like and that's what happened with Apple. People voted with their dollar. They said it loud and clear. And so there's little things that we can do. Dawn and I have done it, and it's gradual, and it all ties in with where we're spending our money, but also what's good for us too. Like, we've cut back on fast food. Like, I can count on my fingers how many times we've been to a fast food joint this year. And it's, part of it has been financial, but part of it's also been like, we've been more conscious of where we're going to spend our money. So if we are out and about and we have to eat somewhere, now we look for the mom and pop place first rather than a chain. And just little things like that, in my opinion.
That's awesome. No, I think you hammered home a really good point, and I'm going to break down what all three of you said, and I'm going to give my little thought here. I mean, Jennifer, you're absolutely right. Self-sufficiency, learning actual pragmatic skills that can help make you more self-sufficient. From growing your own food to hunting your own food to learning how to filter your own water, potentially other kinds of trades and tricks as well. I think the more that we learn these things on an independent level, and we start to value real life skills over, going and sitting at our desk job each day. I think that's a really huge thing we can do collectively. And I think, that's something we can promote within our collective to start doing as well. Karen, 100% right on our focus. I really like that. I do think that, yes, energy goes where the focus goes, or energy flows where the focus goes. And, we all know that loosh is kind of a big thing here. This little harvesting game they have going on. So, that makes a lot of sense, Karen. I believe you're absolutely right. We need to start actually putting our focus towards the things we want to see. the lives we want to have subjectively and collectively, the media and the content that we want to intake. Very, very good, Karen. And then we have Don and Spinja. Don, I think you're absolutely right. I think, being more positive as a collective, being out in the societal life, and increasing the frequency of everywhere that we go, every person that we come into contact with, every room we walk into. Very, very cool. I think that's awesome. And Spinja, yes, voting with the dollar. I do think that that's still something we look at what happened to Bud Light. We look at what happened to a lot of these corporations that I think Target got hit also. There's a few other ones that decided to make bad moves. But again, this is a good showcase and a piece to take a look at, that we have a lot more power than we understand. As even not just our conscious collective, but the human collective in general. And I want to say my answer really has to do with all three of the things that you guys spoke about to some degree or other. So I speak about this sometimes every time I look at this scenario, at least from a collective level. I see this gigantic wall in front of me, and some days the wall appears larger than other days, depending on the day and what's going on. But nonetheless, we have a wall we're dealing with. But the weak point in this wall is actually us. We are the weak point in this wall, and it's not in a bad sense of a weak point. It's in a good sense. So I think all of your answers are great, guys, and I agree with them. And I think that's what we really need to start doing, is we need to start training ourselves to have practical skills to understand how the world works, at least to the best degree that we can. So if we need to move forward as a collective, we can do that, and we can have these skills and these ways to help make this work. Also to everybody, what you're putting your focus into. I can think of at least, yes, I'll admit some of the distraction psyops are funny. Don't get me wrong. I laugh a little bit too, but I laugh and then I let it go. You know what I mean? I put your focus and your intention into the things that you want to see and the things that you want to come to fruition. Because if, consciousness truly is the prime fundamental of reality, that makes a world of sense. So I like that. And guys, let's continue to put our dollar towards mom and pop stuff, the real capitalism, not the crony capitalism that we have, when it comes to these big corporations, but these small mom and pop shops, these, independent people who are trying to do great things. And of course, guys, let's increase the frequency of everywhere we go and everybody we come into contact with. Don, what do you want to say?
You just kind of triggered a memory from an interview I did with Dan Armstrong. We were doing Gnosticism 101, basically, and he went through the whole economical system, and he summed it up very nicely as every dollar is a piece of your life. Who do you want to give it to?
That's very good analogy, because time is two things. Time is money, or you could say money is also time, and time is also energy. So when you spend time and you collect that money, you're essentially collecting energy in reciprocation for your time. But then who you give that energy back to is most certainly should be of things that you want to see, and it should be of a reality that you wish to see. All great answers, guys. I think those are fantastic. I agree with each one of them, and my answer is pretty much a sum up of you all's answers as well. So, all right, the next one. This is we're gonna throw this out there. So a lot of people feel, as of this time, that when we, in the next, I guess you could say, 10 to 20 years, people feel there's going to be a split. I know we talked at this at the gathering, Jen, so you might know a little bit of what I'm about to talk about now, but a lot of people think that, and I'm in this camp, that a new Earth is going to potentially exist alongside the old paradigm. or it's going to come into fruition while the old paradigm is still withering away. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there who feel that this could potentially be a frequency split of some kind, or what it will just be is that we will be moving forward while some of the collective decides to be staying back. So this is just something I wanted to ask you guys' thoughts on. It's a little bit of speculation. I'm just curious. So let's start with Karen. Karen, what are your thoughts on that? Do you feel that New Earth is potentially going to come into fruition alongside of this old paradigm as it goes away, or is there going to be a shift in frequency of some sort? Is there going to be potentially a, maybe a higher octave that people like us will potentially settle in while we wait for the rest to maybe come to that realization?
Well, that's a really good question. I lately have been leaning towards simulation theory, and I think that we're actually going to have a splitting off of timelines. And because I think that we could coexist. I could just give you a quick example. Just say the Agenda 2030 comes to fruition and you have to be chipped and have digital ID and all of that to live in the cities, or else you're an outcast out into the boonies. Well, maybe for a while we could live quite well. They may not realize in the cities how good we have it, being self-organized, in beyond what let's call the fringes. But there will come a time where they will probably want to get rid of us. So I'm thinking that, and of course, this is just speculation, that there's actually going to be a splitting off into two separate timelines. And because as we, well, there's two things. As we believe and participate in a reality, it becomes real, and the simulation supports us. But I also believe, from a non-religious perspective, that there is such a thing as what is often called Holy Spirit or Chi or Prana. And I think there's an order and consciousness to the universe, including the planet we live on. And when we're living in harmony with that, it turbocharges the eventuality. So I actually am quite sure that there would be a splitting off, because neither side is really going to change. It's like an unstoppable force moving upon an immovable object. And the system is the immovable object, and we are the unstoppable force. So although, we could be like the wind and the sand and the water and wear it away, chances are we'll just split and do our own thing. I don't know. That's not really clear, because I'm not really clear on what I believe the outcome will be. I'm just more interested in becoming the change that I want to see in the world.
I dig that. I dig that. No, absolutely, absolutely. This is it's an interesting question, and the reason why I did bring it up is that, there's a lot of people in our community speculating about it right now, and I do think it's just an interesting point of conversation, to take a look and just kind of entertain this idea of how this will potentially go down. So, Don Spinja, let's hear your thoughts on this real quick.
This one kind of tickles my science nerd, actually. I actually go by the idea that because our emotions have a frequency as well, and because we have limited perceptions in our physical forms, I think eventually what's going to happen is that we are going to exist dualistically, but we're going to become vibrationally imperceivable to those that are remaining at that lower emotional state. It's literally like we can't see certain light shades right now, right? We all know this. We can't hear certain octaves. Well, soon we won't even be able to be perceived by people of certain vibration. That's my nerd.
I thought no. I dig that. And I've chatted with you about that before, where I've had instances where I would be right in front of somebody and they would walk by me and I'd be looking at them, and then finally I would have to go up and like tap them, and they turn around and be like, "Whoa, when did you get here?" And I was like, I'm. You guys know how wide and large I am. How did you not miss? How did you miss me? I stick out like a sore thumb. So like no, I really like that. Spinja, what do you think?
I'm lining up sort of the same, and I sort of question if it's already happening. Because like for myself, okay, just like as an example, like I've said repeatedly about how much I love my job. I love my job so much. My bosses are so amazing. They treat us like gold, and I know this is very, very rare, especially nowadays. But even with that, the energy has shifted, and nothing to do with the bosses. It's the energy in the shop that has shifted, and it just keeps getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And there's been times like, well, I have this one coworker. I always say hi to her, and I've just stopped because there's been 2 or 3 different times where she's looked me straight in the face and just kept on walking. Now, I mean, it could be that she's got some beef with me or whatever. I don't know. I don't talk to her. I don't know how I'm causing any problems here. I don't gossip. Like, I'm like one of the only people whose first language is English. So, like there's not a whole lot of conversation or gossip. So it's beyond me. I don't know, but I also don't care. But I also think though that I see my vibration is raising. And I just and also part of my morning meeting with my team is I put on my invisibility cloak and ask that I'm not that I only interact with people of a lower vibration when I have to, or when they need me. Like I set out some pretty strong parameters. And I really question, and then things are happening like in our personal life, and I see it across the board. I feel like we're being pushed out of the bigger centers. Now, when I go to work, like thank goodness my workplace is on the edge of the city, I feel gross. And when I have to actually go into the city, my anxiety is starting to go up, and there's no reason. Like, yeah, drivers are assholes, and it gets kind of ugly on the roads, and but it's not to the point where I should be going shields up. It's not there. It's just an energetic thing, and I really question, what is it? Is it vibrating lower? Am I vibrating higher? Is it both? But there's just some sort of energetic clash.
I'm with you. No. I agree. I think it's very interesting because we've had similar experiences when it comes to this, and I do feel that there could very well be a frequency shift of some kind. We will still be walking alongside everybody else who's choosing to partake in the New World Order timeline. But we will almost vibrate into what I will say a different a sub octave of some kind. I'm not sure, something along those lines. Very, very interesting, guys. I like that. So, Jen, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Oh yeah, I, like everyone else, have no actual idea, but it feels like all of you guys are right. And I know it's, I don't know. I think that the timelines will split. That also, in doing that, the frequencies will become invisible to each other. I do feel like we are in the middle of 100 monkey effect. You guys are familiar with that. Where I don't think there's going to be as many people left behind as we think. A lot of what we do as energy workers is holding that bridge open between third and fifth dimension anyway. And I think that it'll reach a point. I could be wrong, but I think it's like what 17% of the population has to understand something as truth before the entire population understands it as truth. And it feels like we're right at that tipping point. But yeah, I do think there will be folks that just are so stubborn and so set in their ways and so scared to change that they'll end up being left behind. But I have faith in us as a species, so I'd like to think that the majority of us will wake up enough to move into a higher frequency.
Well, yeah, I really like that, Jen. I think that's definitely a good vision. I agree with all four of you, to be 100% honest. I don't know either. I who am I to say that I know? But I feel like we could be very well dealing with that. I do think that we'll be looking at a potential timeline split, a potential frequency split of some kind. And Jen brought up a very cool point that the 100th monkey effect. Not as many people will be staying on the New World Order timeline as we think. One of the biggest things I've spoken about lately is this awareness, this awakening, or this remembering, whatever we want to call it at this point. We have two aspects to it. We have the conscious aspect and the subconscious aspect. And the conscious aspect are people like us who are aware of what's going on. We're aware of what we need to do, at least on a subjective level, to help kind of carry this along. But then there's this subconscious aspect that I've been beginning to see emerge. And I do think that's because people like us are these what I'll call energetic light posts, and we're grounding this new way of being into this existence. And what I've been seeing more and more of lately, and I'm sure you all four of you can agree, is that I've been seeing, even if they don't have the bigger picture in mind, like they don't see as much as we do, or they haven't come to that understanding yet. I see so many people getting into homesteading, like growing and hunting their own food, like learning how to build their own homes, getting into like spiritual practices such as like meditation, yoga, things like that, starting to look at these spiritual books and look at different perspectives. And I think that's where you're coming in with that 100th monkey effect. I 100% agree with that, and we're starting to see that manifest.
Yeah.
And so very good, guys. I'm with you. I don't know either, but I do think we're going to have a very interesting next 10 to 20 years. I do think we could potentially see some kind of little split go on. And, I do think maybe there is something to, what I would say those 7 years. I mean, maybe in 7 years, the timelines might move closer, and the people who were on the New World Order timeline will have a chance to hop over and join us once they've kind of, learned what was going on. Alrighty, guys, I saved one of the juiciest ones for last because I think, we all have our own personal philosophy when it comes to this. My personal philosophy is anarchist. Don't get me wrong. I know a lot of other people have different personal philosophies when we're talking about this subject. But one of the biggest things for moving forward, and kind of detaching ourselves from this old paradigm and moving into the new earth and the new way of being is government. It's a huge talking point. A lot of people, including myself, I'll have to be honest with this, as much as I am an anarchist by personal philosophy, I know that this human collective is not morally, ethically, or emotionally sound enough to handle a system like that. And it kind of leaves open to the debate, will we potentially need government as we know it today? Would it potentially change? Would it potentially transform our definition? Or would we potentially still in some way need to facilitate some aspects of the system, not in its energetic aspects, or its dark aspects, but to have some kind of organization for this because, you know, I love the idea of having, you know, 8 billion anarchists on planet Earth. I really do. I think that's great. I think that's great. But, you know, like I said, you know, the rest of the collective is not just there yet to be able to do something like that. So, Don and Spindle, let's start off with you guys.
I just blanked.
No, you blinked. Okay. At this point, I think there's probably going to still need to be some sort of organization. I don't know how that would look. I would think that like maybe like committees that are voted in the community. But there would definitely need to be some more parameters. Like, for example, if anybody was leading, you need to flip an experience. You know, these clowns that are sitting in office right now that have never been to war, that are sending our soldiers over to these other countries that they've never been to, no, that's not acceptable. So to have somebody in a leadership role, for example, like if like, you know, like say we're going like bare bones and you know, like we're like there's like farming issues and you know, like property lines and things like that. Yeah, you know, like there's probably something that would need to be in place, but there needs to be actual input, and it needs to be a hell of a lot smaller than it is. We need and I'll go back to Lindsay Sharman, you know, like she keeps on pressing the importance. Community, like local government is what matters. Screw the big guys. It's not necessary. It's the people around you. And I don't even know if it's a leadership. It's just working together, cooperating, like play nice.
I'm with you. 100%.
I actually remembered what I was going to say. That's why I had to write it down. She taught me to use the notebook.
We got notebooks now.
I think right now in the States and in Canada, the government's actually falling apart. And we're watching it very slowly. Like, it's pretty much become laughable in both countries. Like, if you are on neither side of the bird, you're like, look how stupid this is. It doesn't matter whose country, right? And I think if it did all just fall apart or we decide that we're not doing it anymore, like she was saying, committees and also a town hall style functional vote. Like, you know, I actually got in trouble on social media when they tried to bring in the digital IDs. I was like, hey, that's great. If you bring those out, that means you can let every one of us, because we are an assigned citizen, we can all have a vote on every subject now, right? And I got asked to remove that post. But if you actually did have a old school town hall system, I think it would be functionally better, and you could actually use technology or whatever system you wanted to as a benefit, right? Because I'd like to know what's going through everything in our Charter of Rights and our House of Congress every time. Like, the amount of things that just gets passed right now is insane.
Oh, the omnibus bills.
The omnibus bills. Our internet or social media got censored during COVID, and it got passed under the guise of protection, under false information.
What's the real reason?
Because Justin Trudeau got divorced during COVID, and he was fucking embarrassed. So he blacked out the whole goddamn internet and social media for Canada because he was pissy, so he changed everybody's privacy settings. But anyways, that's just my opinion. But no, it's actually laughable now, and we actually could functionally go back to a everybody get to say system. That's my take.
No, I really enjoy that. And, you know, all I'm gonna say is, you know, I wonder what Sockboy does with all of those songs. That's all I'm gonna say there. I just wonder what he does. No. No, and a very good answer, you guys. Very good answer. You know, and of course, I'll bring up Mrs. Sneath's comment real quick again. You know, small government, max rights, protections. You know, I completely agree with that. Also, I do think that yes, that what we need to start doing is we need to start focusing on our communities and the people around us. I do think that we need to reignite that community factor. You know, we've been separated right now. I mean, everybody. like we were talking about at the gathering, Jen, back in the day before the days of the internet and, smartphones and all that, we used to sit around a bonfire. We used to talk to each other. Like, we used to get to know each other. And I think that's really going to be a huge important basis for what's to come and keeping things organized. Very good, you two. So what do you think, Jen? I know when we were discussing in that car ride with someone I will not name, we were discussing anarchism and how it's not the human's natural state. So let's kind of dive into that just a little bit. What are your opinions on what a potential system of organization could be, or your thoughts on what it should be? After we kind of move forward from this and we detach ourselves from this old paradigm.
Oh, wow. That's a really big question. Well, first of all, let me reassure everyone that when the world initially goes to shit, we do have a great blueprint for survival. It's called Cuba. So after 50 years of not being able to get help from any other person on the planet or any other country on the planet, they thrived. And they did it in two ways. So the first one would be community. They joined together. They knew that everyone had to help. And the second one was they planted a seed in every square inch of soil they could find so they could feed themselves. And beyond that, now they actually export more doctors than any other country in the world, which is awesome. But, as far as like government and how the system would look, I see, small governments, first of all, for local communities having the largest power structure, so to speak, the most influence over, the different communities should be the community first off. Where I run into an issue is, yes, anarchy is great, but it's transitional because the human condition means that we strive towards organization. So when things, we get all excited and fun with the yay, I get to do whatever I want to now because I govern myself kind of thing, we will eventually fall into a pattern. And patterns, that's just human nature. But my question tends to go into, once we move into a fifth dimensional state and we have an understanding that we are but one player in, the galaxy, the cosmos, and that it's teeming with life, all of a sudden we are faced with, how do we represent Earth? If I have all these teeny tiny little governments and, each country, each community, each whatever governs itself, how do we represent the human race on a galactic level? So we do have, I'm seeing things like middle-sized governments going bye-bye, and it being small ones and then a representative. We have to have a representative, right? We can't have like somebody from every community on the planet show up. We'd have millions of people up there trying to clamor around to represent humans. So that's where I tend to run into so how do we do that?
I like that. No, and I'm with you. Real quick, Mrs. Sneath posted one more comment here. We got small equals significantly scaled back. Yes, I do. I do believe decentralization is needed at this point, but you're absolutely right, Jennifer. I do think we will see a rise of smaller governments, and I do think that these governments are going to kind of maintain and take care of their surrounding areas and the people who reside there. It's a very interesting question that you said 17%, which I like that, because that's even better than what I thought it was, which was 51% of the globe. Yeah, no, I thought it was very well. Thank you for that. And I do feel that once we get to that point in our collective evolution, that yes, very well, we very well could have representatives to represent, this portion of this planet or this area of this planet, and kind of like, I wouldn't say diplomats per se, but like you said, kind of just representatives. And that would be a very interesting thing to see, honestly. I hope I'm still alive when that happens. One can only hope, but no, I'm with you on that. And last but not least, Miss Karen. So what are your opinions on what a potential organizational system could be as we start to move away from this old paradigm? And like we were talking, I want to bring up the shopping cart analogy real fast, because everybody, we were talking about this before the show. So we originally thought there were two types of individuals when we're dealing with the shopping cart analogy. The first who can return their cart to the cartwell, because even though they're not obligated to, they're not being told to do, or there's no sense of emergency, this person still returns the shopping cart because they know it's the right thing to do. And then we have the second person who just leaves the shopping cart where they're at. But Karen has informed me that there's a third person, and I did not. Karen, let's hear about that third person real quick.
The third person brings their shit out of Walmart or Costco or whatever and unwraps and takes all the packaging off the items they've bought, whether it's a TV or underwear, and they either leave it in the cart or they just trash it all over the parking lot, and they do not return their shopping cart. And it's disgusting, and they assume that they're creating work for someone else who has to get hired to clean that up.
Yeah,
I forgot to mention the adult diapers, because there's a lot of people camping out at Walmart, and they like to throw their adult diapers in. Long distance travelers, they like those adult diapers, and then they just throw them in the shopping cart. So that might even be a fourth grouping. I'm not sure.
I'm with you. And I just wanted to get that out there, because no, there is that third person. I agree with you. So real quick, let's hear your thoughts on. Do you feel that there will be some kind of organizational system? Once we start to kind of move away from this old paradigm, because I think a lot of us, we're people like you and I, we're fed up with government as we know it. It hasn't benefited us. But like I said, as much as I would love 8 billion anarchists roaming the planet Earth, we know that the global collective is not morally, ethically, or emotionally sound enough to handle a system just like that yet. So I definitely like to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, just as Jennifer, used Cuba as an example, I'd like to use an example from the past, which worked exceptionally well. So I'm not sure of the time frame. I could be out by 50 years, but I'm pretty sure it was in the early 1900s in South America. And there were so many problems, so much poverty, so much illiteracy, and no real system of government that had worked. Everything was corrupt, falling apart, and back to basics. So there was a guy by the name of Paulo Freire. And what he did is he introduced a literacy program, and this is how he did it. He got villages and communities and neighborhoods to get together and find out who knows what. And they cooperated with each other. So they didn't need to bring in experts. Everybody already had a piece of the knowledge and the way to do things within themselves. And they came together, and he called this the popular education model. And people got together and they decided how much time they wanted to spend on any subject. It was a consensus model. And they decided on how the structure, how it would work. The people all decided and agreed among themselves. And so they started finding out who knows what. And people knew so much more than what they realized they knew. And so they started to put together programs to teach the children and themselves how to read and write. That was the literacy program, but they also used it for every other aspect of their community. So I know you've all sort of already touched on this. I just wanted to bring it out that this is a real thing. This really, really worked. And it was amazing. So a lot of the problem we're seeing with government is they're going out to academics and labeling them experts. And these academics who don't know their asses from a hole in the ground are making these policy decisions that sound good to politicians who also don't know their asses from a hole in the ground. And they're not listening to the people who are living and actually have the experience. And so Paulo Freire, I'm a big fan of his, and he started the literacy program. It's called Popular Education. Y'all can Google it. And it was a way that they reestablished everything they needed within communities, neighborhoods. And again, it gets back to smaller groups coming together, treating each other with dignity, respect, love, and finding solutions. And if that doesn't work, you throw it out and you try another solution, because at least you tried that one, right? And it works. And so I just wanted to mention that I think that would be a cool system that we can bring in when the current system, when the wheels fall off the cart, and it ain't going anywhere anytime soon. I just want to add to that what Jennifer was saying about 17%. I've even heard that it's as low as 11% before we get the 100th monkey thing happening. And I'm telling you, it can be a very simple and very beautiful life. And we don't have to get rid of technology. Can you imagine if we were spending zero on war and nefarious technology, and we put our minds together with positive, like for instance, 0 point energy, et cetera, we could have an amazing planet, more than enough energy, food, everything we need. And it's really not that hard. We just got to stop giving those assholes our attention. Okay, I'll zip it.
No, Karen, that was awesome. So what was the name of that? So it's Paulo Fury, and what was the name of the
Paulo, and his last name is FR. I don't know if it's IE or EI, but then RE, Paulo Freire, and it's called the Popular Education Model. And I'm in another life that I do, another hat I wear, I do facilitation professionally, and I use the popular education model for groups that are interested in consensus models.
I think that's really cool. And actually, I think that could very well be a model we could use to when we do break away from this. And you just taught me something today, Karen. Like, yes, this is something I'm going to read into, I'm going to check out, and I'm going to start implementing this and start finding ways we can implement this into the community. I think all three of your answers, or all four of you guys' answers, were fantastic. I do think what we need to do, at least in my opinion, is when we move away from this current system, or the wheels fall off it, as Karen said, it's happening. We're watching it go down. I mean, it's happening seam by seam and stitch by stitch, but it's, being a very slow process at this point. But no, I do think a smaller government, I do think, a lot of people are afraid of the word decentralization. I think that they think it means that there's going to be, the roads are going to fall apart, the bridges are going to, everybody's always worried about the infrastructure when it comes to that kind of term, when we talk about decentralization. But, in all honesty, we would have more people in communities, and these smaller governments start to help facilitate this infrastructure as well. So that's kind of the my rebuttal to that, but also as well, I think the popular education model is a really great thing. Just based on what you told me, because I do think, one of the biggest things we have to understand is that, when we're divided, we're weak, but when we unify, we're strong. United we stand, divided we fall, is a big thing that we talk about a lot in today's age when it comes to the current situation at hand. And I feel that what we need to start doing and understanding is looking towards those people who have these skills and this knowledge. I think we've been hypnotized into hero worship. I think a lot of people in today's collective were looking up to the wrong people. Like I see people looking up to these politicians or these Hollywood actors or these people who have no relation or or not even in the same realm of life that you are, but we're worshiping these people, we're listening to them. And one of the biggest things that I say is you're not going to find beacons of light in the mainstream. You're not going to find them on TV. You're not going to find them, on the Alex Jones show. You're not going to find them anywhere. You're going to find them in your community. You're going to find them, with people like us. And what I think we should start doing is, at least in our own collective communities, is promoting that. Like, people should be listening to Karen's show. People should be listening to Don and Spinja's show. People should be listening to FKN and all of that as well, because that's really where we're learning things from, is each other. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest things that we will need to tackle as a collective moving forward. Well, guys, we're hitting the hour and 15 mark. I want to first thank all of you for joining me here. This was my first time hosting this panel, and it was an interesting time. It was a good time, guys. And but real quick, before we sign off, let's talk about where we can find you guys and what you guys are working on. So let's start with Dawn and Spinja. Where can we listen to your show, and what do you guys have in store for everybody at this point in time?
You can catch my stuff on Don Rogers at March 4th Productions, and of course on the FKN network. And I'm going to say this really quick. If we're picking representatives, I'm choosing Keanu Reeves, because dude is humble as hell and can kick everybody's ass. So him.
John Wick. All right. I know, right? What about you, Spinja? Where can we find you, and what have you been working on as of late?
You can find me at Canadian Spinja on YouTube, and then I'm also on the FKN network as well. And I've got a few pots on the stove. I'm just so we were talking about breaking away from the 3D, and I'm this close to having my foot almost out. I ran it past the bosses today to see about working from home. And if it doesn't work out, I'm not going to be upset, because they will help me figure things out. But with that means that there's potential for a lot of expansion. I've been wanting to do like instructional videos on my channel as well. So hopefully that will fall into place. But in the meantime, I'm still interviewing people and asking questions. So, and thanks for having me here, and thanks for the support from everybody. So.
Always, guys. Thank you for being here again, Miss Jennifer Halcomb. Where can we find you? We know, and I want to hear what you and Chris have been working on as well.
Oh, well, we're still working on the second documentary that hopefully will be out by the end of the year, Doors of Perception. So you guys check that out. Check out our first one, Occult Louisiana, the Forbidden documentary. You can find me at Jennifer Halcomb at gmail.com. And you can also find me on Facebook. So hit me up there.
Awesome. And Karen, where can we find you and listen to your show? And what have you been working on as of late as well?
Lots of stuff. You can find me on pretty well all podcast platforms at Karen Holton TV, but I'm also part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, and you can find me under the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton there. I continue to do 2 shows a week, Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. I do the Quantum Guide Show where I interview people who have something positive to add to the world. And it's generally fairly fringe. And on Sundays at noon Mountain Time, I host the Aliens and Angels podcast. And I've got a great lineup starting in September of guests. And we talk all things extraterrestrial and angelic on that show. Stephen, I just want to let you know in the private chat, I put my Linktree link in case you want to put it in the description, because if people check me out on Linktree, everything is there where they can find all the things that I am up to. And besides that, I'm just really enjoying the end of summer. And thank you so much for having me on the show. And to my friends on the show, it's been lovely seeing you all again and talking with you. And you're all amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen. It was cool to have you on my show for the first time. I definitely want to have an interview with you, mano y mano, though. So we will chat after the show's over. If you guys don't mind hanging out for just a minute after we're done, so I can collect emails and get everything sent to you, guys. Thank you for joining me for this special VGCast episode, the FKN Panel Solutions for a New Earth. I think what we can take away from this, guys, is number one, our perspective is everything. When it comes to the struggles that we face, not just subjectively and collectively, but what we're looking at in the grand scheme of the Planet Earth TV show is what we'll kind of call it at this point in time. Learning practical skills, learning how to be self-sufficient, being a educational source to others who are trying to learn this. I feel that these are going to be 3 integral things that we're going to need to start utilizing in order to move forward into this new way of being in this new earth. So everybody, I will be back on Wednesday. I will be interviewing Sarah the Alchemist, and I will be also having Mindful Warrior Within on a little bit later. And other than that, thank you again for joining me for another VGCast live podcast, guys. Take care and have a great night.
Thanks, Stephen.